Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 62 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest will be Gracie Jiu Jitsu black belt, Marc Marines, and we'll get to that in just a couple of moments. But before we do, let's do a martial arts quote, and then a quick product review, and then we'll do a Meet the Listener segment. Then we'll get to our interview and finish up with the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment, where today we'll have a special guest doing that segment for us. Okay, let's start with our martial arts quote, and that is, "Thus the principle of judo from the very beginning is not one of aggression, but of flowing with things." And that's from Jigoro Kano, founder of judo. And that's a great quote, and it certainly can be applied to jiu-jitsu as well as judo, for sure. Okay, moving on, I'd like to do a quick product review. And the product I'm going to review is the Tatami Fightwear luggage bag. And this bag is built for the overnight international competitor, but you certainly don't have to be a competitor to use this bag. It's a great bag. It has a big interior main pocket, a front wet pocket, and this is a great feature. This pocket is for your attire that you've used already, that you've sweated in and it's wet, and so it has its own pocket. You can put that in, so you don't have to mix those wet and stinky clothes with your other stuff in your bag. So I love that feature about it. It has a small additional front pocket and two side drink mesh holder pockets as well. It's a great looking bag. I have it in red and black, and very nice stitching and embroidery on it. It really looks really good. The bag itself is strong and durable. Really impressed with the quality and craftsmanship of the bag. One of the coolest things about the bag is how you can carry it. You have three different options. You can carry it with a hand strap. You can use it as a backpack. It has two hidden straps that you unzip and pull out and just turn it into a backpack. So you can use both those straps and put it on your back, or just throw it over your shoulder with one of those straps. And the third option is you can extend the handle and roll it. It does have wheels. The only downside I see of this bag is if you are looking for a bigger bag, more of a duffel bag type size bag, this is much smaller than that. But I have both. I have a bigger Gracie bag that's a duffel bag that I use a lot. But if I want to go with something smaller, then I'll use this one as well. So, and also in the main compartment, it has a zippered area where you can put in your iPad or books or something like that as well. My friend Jeff and I did a video about this on the website, so you can check that out at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. And you can find out more about this bag at the Tatami Fightwear website at tatamifightwear.com. Moving on now to our Meet the Listener segment. And I've been getting great feedback about these segments, so going to continue doing those, not in every episode, but certainly in some of the episodes. Today we'll be speaking with Trey Davis. So let's meet Trey now. Okay, speaking with Trey Davis. So welcome, Trey.
Thank you, Marty. It's good to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. It's my pleasure to be speaking with you today. So Trey, if you would just tell us where you're from and where you currently train.
I live about an hour north of Memphis, Tennessee, and I train at Chilcutt's Memphis MMA, Hoist Gracie Jiu Jitsu, which is in Bartlett, Tennessee, which is basically, that is Tennessee. And the owner there is Chad Chilcutt, and he is a black belt under Hoist Gracie.
Wonderful, wonderful. And tell us something great about training there, or some of the things you like best about training there, Trey.
I would say definitely a couple of things. One is they really focus on the self-defense, like the stand-up self-defense. I know a lot of guys might not like that, but I love the stand-up self-defense. And anytime he pulls out, the plastic knives, plastic guns, or the sticks, or any of that stuff, I mean, that stuff is just great. It's so practical. It's so fun. I really enjoy that. And as far as instruction, man, the guys there they're great. Chad's great. Jim, John, Brad, all the guys each there, they're just so helpful, and they want you to learn, and they're patient. And I was on the mats yesterday, and one of Chad's brown belts who does some teaching, John, he literally stayed there with me on the mats for like 45 minutes, like long after everybody, they'd finished rolling, and he was showing me all kinds of different stuff. He was answering my questions and just giving me these little tips that, that are like, some light bulb moments to me. It's stuff he knows, I don't know, but it's just, just super, super helpful. And it's a great environment, great atmosphere. Everybody's really nice, and they want to teach you jiu-jitsu. So
that's great. It's really wonderful when you found a place that, just feels right to you and really meeting your needs, and very supportive in your growth and your journey. So wonderful. Glad you found that. What about, Trey, when you're not on the mat? Do you have any hobbies, or what do you like to do when you're not training?
I am a full-time husband and soon-to-be full-time father. My wife's pregnant with our first child.
Oh, wow!
And so that pretty much, I'm in school, but between a little bit of work, a little bit of school, and full-time being a husband, that keeps me busy. Also, I'm very involved, my wife and I, in our church. And I think, I mentioned you this before about, wanting to be a black belt someday in jiu-jitsu. But I think, first wanting to be a black belt at home and in my church for Christ. And really that really is, comes first. And that's where I want to really shine and be the best I can be. So.
Awesome. Sounds like you really have your priorities straight in your life, and you know what's important. Congratulations on your upcoming birth of your. Do you know what it's going to be, a boy or girl?
It's going to be a little girl. Girl.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So, yeah, thank you very much.
Wonderful.
I'm excited.
And when's the expected date?
February 23rd, and wow. So it's getting a little closer. Just 3 months-ish or so.
Very exciting, my friend.
Yes.
Well, what do you like about? Thank you for listening and being a listener first, by the way. And what do you like most about the podcast, Trey?
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, like that I really just appreciate how you try to keep it clean. There are some podcasts, so there are a lot of jiu-jitsu podcasts, and a lot of them I have just deleted. I don't even want to listen to them, because some of them are just filthy, And I really appreciate how you guys keep it clean, and I appreciate the quality of guests that you have on there. I'm not, going to name any names, but I can think of another jiu-jitsu podcast that it seems like they're pumping out an episode every other day, but I don't even know who the people are that they're putting on the show. But every time you put someone out, I've heard of them, I know who they are, or I know who their instructor is, and so just the top-notch, top-quality guests that you get, guys that are super helpful, give super great interviews. It's just really enjoyable to listen to.
Great. Like I said, I appreciate you being a listener, and I'm glad that the guests have some relevance in your life and your journey, so that makes me feel great. Anybody you want to shout out to before we close, Trey?
Well, I'll just say thank you to my instructors, Chad, Jim, Brad, Paul. Thank all you guys for teaching, and all my training partners at Chad's Gym. And thank you, Marty, for having a good podcast, and I really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure, and keep listening and help me spread the word. Much respect, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, time now for our interview. After the interview, make sure you stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment, where my guest will be Howard Steele of Delaware Bushido Academy. Okay, today in the interview, I interview Marc Marines. And Marc is a Gracie Jiu Jitsu black belt with over 20 years of experience in Jiu Jitsu. He's the owner and head instructor of North Vancouver Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and he also is a first-degree black belt in Kodokan Judo and has competed and trained in Judo as a complement to his Jiu Jitsu training. He has a varied background in Jiu Jitsu with regard to who he's trained under through the years, and just a very interesting and awesome person in general. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview, so let's meet Marc now. Okay, I'm speaking with Marc Marines, a Gracie Jiu Jitsu black belt and owner and head instructor of North Vancouver BJJ, which is a certified training center through the Gracie Academy. So welcome, sir, and thank you for speaking with us today.
Thanks for having me on. It's an honor, much appreciated, and great to have an opportunity to speak with you.
Thanks. The honor's mine, my friend. And before we get started, I just want to clear something up. I erroneously included Marc in the list of Pedro Sauer black belts when I was speaking with Master Sauer on his episode. And I was listing Pedro Sauer black belts that I had connected with and met over the last few years. And for some reason thought Marc was among those. But Marc is not a Pedro Sauer black belt, and we'll be talking about Marc, where you actually received your black belt. But to bring us to that point, let's just start with how you began your martial arts journey.
Thank you. So I always wanted to do martial arts when I was young. Just like a lot of little boys, when I would see a Rocky movie, I would get really excited and run around the house. And I remember I was visiting one of my friends' houses, and they had one of those blow-up little play boxing punching bag things. And I remember being on that for so long that my lungs were burning. And, as a little kid, I asked my mom to be in a karate class in grade 4. And, as my years went on into high school, I was looking for something, and one of my friends approached me, I believe it was in grade 11, and said, I've been training some martial arts, and you should come check it out. And I said, well, what kind of martial arts do you guys do? And his school was a bit of a mix. They had been doing a bit of kickboxing, and I believe they had a form of grappling called pancration. And so he called me and basically told me a little bit about it. And he said, you could do the martial art that like the best fighter in the world right now is doing. And I said, oh, what's that? He goes, well, it's jiu-jitsu. And I said, well, what's that like? And he goes, well, yeah, he puts people in holds and submissions. And I said, oh, how does that work? And he goes, well, he gets really close to people and he puts them in some kind of a hold that breaks their bones. And I said, I can't even fathom how that's possible. Like, I couldn't even picture it. Right. And I thought you'd get close to somebody and you'd like hit their arm and break it somehow. Like, I couldn't understand. So he said, well, I have this UFC. Let's all watch it together. So he had, I think, the original UFC on video. And we brought it over to one of my friend's houses, in my friend's basement, and turned it on, watched it, and I was like, oh, wow, learned that Royce was Brazilian, and I'm half Brazilian, my dad's Brazilian, and just saw his calmness and kind of, he still has an air of, there's something to fear with his calmness and his stare. So I was like, wow, this is like, my new hero. And really wanted to do that right away. And it was funny because I remember watching that with my friends that day. And my friends were like, well, let's try this. And, nobody was going to hit each other, but I think they kind of got the grappling aspect of it. So we cleared, couches out of the way. And my little friend, Carlos, he was 5'5", I believe, 5'5", 5'6". My other friend, Solomon, 6'2", and he was like 220 at the time. They just were grappling just for a few seconds, just kind of playfully. But Carlos just slipped to his back, somehow ducked under to his back, and got him in like a little choke and kind of held it for a second. I saw the panic on my friend's face, and he tapped. And we were like, whoa, wow, this is amazing, right? And, we were just kind of getting that from watching it. So right away, I started to look for jiu-jitsu. And what I wanted was, just to find a good school. And basically, it was 1994 where I started to look, right?
Yeah.
And a friend of mine called me and said, well, I found a jiu-jitsu school. And I said, is it Gracie Jiu Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or is it, what kind of jiu-jitsu is it? And he said, well, I think it's traditional. So I showed up there, and as it goes, the instructor, it was traditional jiu-jitsu. And the instructor had a background in all kinds of awesome stuff, like gymnastics and Wing Chun, and he had done several different styles of Kung Fu. And his instructor had visited the Gracie Academy at that time. So the way we practiced was really cool. We did like a little bit of old school stand-up, traditional jiu-jitsu, self-defense, some striking, some conditioning. And at the end of class, I would always request, I would say, can we grapple? Can we get some of the students together and just do like a little bit of grappling? So my teacher was always fine with that. And because at that time, a couple of UFCs had gone by, and I had the tapes, and I was watching Gracie Jiu Jitsu in action pretty well every day.
Yeah.
And I was kind of learning just by watching. And what happened was I would eventually take everyone's back and kind of manage to put a hold on them, or like getting pretty good just with the basics. And so I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, I feel like this is for me. And I was doing it more and more. And a friend called me and said, listen, there's 2 Brazilian guys that just landed in Vancouver. And I think they were 2 of the first Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners from Brazil that landed in Canada, João and Marco Vasconcelos. And they were students of Master Flavio Bering. So, yeah, I just kept going. I mean, I visited their school, and I had been training at that time for about, I believe it was like 10 or 11 months. And I remember those guys had been in town for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they had a pretty big group. And I remember going out, and everyone was really good, like really good. And I don't know, I think some of the guys, well, I know a lot of the people still, they had been practicing on their own. They had groups of their own training. And I remember everyone just being such a great challenge. But the thing that struck me most was when I sparred with João, who was a black belt. João was a black belt, and his brother Marc was a purple. And basically, João just like easily choked me 3 times in a row, like with so much control. Like it was literally, it felt like magic, because I remember I was grabbing both of my collars, trying to stop his hands from getting into my neck. And it wasn't just that he didn't do it rough. He did it very smooth. And in fact, that move, I just taught it yesterday at my school, because it's kind of a sneaky way to get the cross choke from the mount when somebody's fully defending and grabbing their collars. So it was really remarkable, and I really gravitated towards it. So I continued my journey in that direction. So yeah, by the end of 96, I ended up going to Brazil to, hang out with my dad and be with my family a little more, because my father's side of the family is in Brazil, and my mom's side of the family is either mostly here and in Scotland as well, in Toronto, just kind of spread out like that. But my dad's side is in Brazil, including my brother and my aunts. And my grandma at the time was there. So
that's really cool.
I went there. Yeah, I went there in late 96, and I went to Master Flavio Bering's school. And I was, really into it. And, I'd show up at the school every day at like 7:30, 7:15 in the morning, do the morning class. They did a conditioning session. I would do another class. I believe I did 3 classes, 1 conditioning session. And by about 3 p.m., I'd go to meet my dad. We'd all get my brother, who was going to school at the time. My brother, I think, was in the equivalent of like 9th grade in Brazil. And so then we would go home. And I repeated that for, the whole time that I was there. And so by March of 97, I was still there, and there was a little internal tournament. I was wearing the white belt, but at the end of the tournament, I beat 3 guys, I think, and it was a cool day because, I was awarded my blue belt there.
All right.
Stopped the tournament, and Master Bering and João gave it to me, which was really neat.
Very cool.
And yeah, it was neat. It was a cool process, and, it made me really feel like it was something I wanted to do more of. But at the same time, I still had good family and good people around me that were telling me, make sure I get my education and travel and see the world and do different jobs. I was still pretty young. I had just turned 20. So,
I was going to ask you, how old were you when you went down there, and what was that like? I assume you hadn't been down there before. So what was it like just kind of going off for that adventure at 20, probably not sure exactly what to expect?
Yeah, no, it was amazing. Basically, this is how it felt. I felt like I might not come back because, I had not been down to Brazil. Like I grew up here with my mom, and, me and my dad, my family down there mostly talked by like email and letters. And, at the time there was really no internet, of course. So we were just talking whenever we could. And so there was, limited contact. But, I knew my dad was a good guy from my mom. And so, yeah, I left actually thinking I wasn't sure how long I was going to stay. And Brazil, it's a very interesting place. It kind of gets like a bit romanticized. Like it's such a beautiful place that people think, well, you should go there because, it's going to be all palm trees and beaches and coconuts and it's wonderful forever. Right. And there's a lot of it that's like that. But there's another, Brazil's a real place. Brazil has its ups and struggles and has great things about it. And it has certain things that obviously are not perfect. And it was cool because my dad was very reasonable. He knew that I was very excited to be there, but he said, go back, continue your education, and come back and see us often. And that's really how it worked. I went back to Vancouver and, a number of groups of training teams basically were forming locally, right, in 97. And I got back and I was like training with, a great group of people who were affiliated with Gracie Jiu Jitsu and Hoyler and Megaton. And I continued with them and go back to Brazil and I trained with Master Flavio. And it was really cool because I got to see different aspects of the art. When I did come back, I was just, a fresh blue belt. So I wanted to do more. And I think there was limited classes. I think we did probably 3 sessions, maybe 4 a week. So I remember going, well, I want to train pretty well every day, like maybe 6 days a week or 7 days a week. And so what happened was, I went to the judo school locally just because I knew that they were, complementary arts, and I knew that there was something at the judo school that maybe I could learn. And here's the other thing. Because I was young, I basically, I wasn't sure how I would do against somebody who did judo. And there was that little aspect of, I wonder, because I'd seen Gracie Jiu Jitsu in action, I said, I wonder how it would be to train with somebody who does judo. And, they have a few of those matches where Hoyler and Hoist trained with the judo team, California. Yeah. So I went to the judo school, and I found that on the ground, my jiu-jitsu skills were, they were doing me well. I would have some really cool sparring sessions with the guys there. But man, a lot of them could throw me pretty well. Like they could take me down pretty good. And it was fine. I mean, it was safe and it was a good environment. And there's a very strong tradition of judo here in BC, and a very strong Japanese community going way back to all the way to Kodokan. So I definitely wanted, more of that in my life. So I cross-trained, and I was always, jiu-jitsu first. I really, I love Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I basically just wanted to be complete, and I wanted to be well-rounded, and I wanted my skills to, just be as developed as possible. So, I did as much as I could, and eventually, I think as the years went on, I was, sometimes a little bit ahead in jiu-jitsu in terms of rank and my progress. But certainly I was doing, well in judo enough that I received my black belt at the end of 2008 in judo. Nice. And then, and the local teams, they changed affiliations a few times, but I was eventually awarded my black belt in jiu-jitsu in 2007 here locally. And so what happened with my path was eventually when I made it to the academy, they basically do like a reassessment and make sure that you're up to all the academy standards. And so the academy recently gave me my Gracie Academy black belt, which was another huge and incredible honor. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
how did
I think that's a lot of the journey.
From, I think you said 2007 when you initially got your black belt, from there until getting awarded your black belt from the Gracie Academy, how did you find, or what led you to the Gracie Academy and onto that path?
That's a good question. So basically, I think I consider myself like pretty well an old school guy. After getting involved in this in the mid to late 90s, I always, and I think all the practitioners at that time, we all looked at it from, fighting perspective. I remember even like when I was allowed to spar, I remember always thinking about what would happen in a real fight. So a lot of my positioning, I had that in my mind when I was training. I was always thinking, am I safe here? Am I safe here? Am I safe here? And happening by that traditional jiu-jitsu school for my first year certainly helped me think from that traditional perspective. But as the years went on and learning so many different aspects of the art, I learned, pretty well, like, I think everything, I not everything, but I learned all different aspects. And what I would say is learning from a self-defense perspective and learning from a sport perspective was great. It was fun. It was fantastic. And my partner and I, we started we're no longer working together, but I had a partner originally in 2008. And we started a school here in North Vancouver, the suburb. And we were doing great. We were teaching from that background perspective of share the art, share the whole art, and enjoy the whole art. And we developed a great team. Everything was amazing. I think we created very, very good practitioners, very solid practitioners. But as my teaching journey went on, I started to notice a few different things. I had met my future wife, who's my fiance, who at the time, he was actually a second-degree black belt in another martial art, Korean martial art. She had been training locally and in Hong Kong, and she had taken a break. She had taken a couple years break. She had been training for mostly competition, but taken a break due to some injury and some other stuff going on in her life. And when I was asking her to come back, she had said, I feel like I need to start again. I feel like I've forgotten some of the basics. And I said, oh, okay, well, just come out. We'll do our best. And she would go, I feel like I just need to look at the basics. And I say, well, just come train. And so there was a small amount of resistance there to get her back on the mats. And as the teaching journey went on, a number of different things happened. People would come in and they would say, well, we want you to train our children, our kids. And we would say, okay, great. So we started our kids class, and the kids class was going well. But there's something about the kids class that I assessed it all, and I said, listen, this kids class needs to be amazing. It needs to be great. So what happened was I started to look around for different curriculums for kids and basically did lots of research. I basically scoured the internet for whatever I could find. And initially I found a couple of different, basically a syllabus for kids. And they looked fun. Just didn't knock me off my feet. It didn't knock my socks off. So I went and eventually I found Bullyproof. And I watched a Bullyproof video and I said, this is it. And I'd always followed Henner and Huron and the Academy, but when I looked at Bullyproof, it really, it was a great eye-opener, and I thought, this is a great kids class, this is tremendous, and this is perfect for kids. So basically, I just, at the time, ordered Gracie Bullyproof. I just ordered the DVDs, and I thought to myself, I'm going to study these DVDs to help my children and help the kids in the school. So I basically went from there, and of course, I think one day, I just jumped over to Gracie University, and was sitting there with my wife, and I said, Liz, come look at this video. And we had always appreciated the way that Henner and Huron taught, but we felt like the lesson, all the details that you learn over the years, I saw them do very nice presentation of everything, and I really appreciated that. And I thought, this is a very good and clear, and I looked at the whole course, and that's what happened, basically. I got very excited about that as well, and I thought, this is very cool because I think most people that are starting their jiu-jitsu journey are going to want something just like this, like something that's going to be the fighting perspective, from a self-defense perspective. They're going to want, a core group of basics. They're going to want to see a clear path in front of them, even a good check at the end of that course, like a test, something that we can look at all of what you know from a defensive and offensive perspective. So I really, basically fell in love with what it was all about. And the more I looked into it, the more I liked it. And there's a number of different things that kind of pushed me into it. But of course, my wife and getting her back on the mats, the kids that were in my school, and of course, I saw a short video by Grandmaster Elio that's on a Gracie University site. And just kind of looking around all that, I decided to contact and eventually decided to do the ICP.
I always find it interesting how many people get led to the adult programs at the Gracie Academy from the Bullyproof. I mean, Bullyproof is such an incredible program, and it's very understandable why people would progress on to the other program. So interesting that you did that. So I met you this past summer at the Gracie Academy at the ICP, the Instructor Certification Program. So tell us about what that was like going through that and what the experience has been like for you aligning with the Academy and bringing that program to your school.
Okay, yeah. Well, I first did the ICP in 2013. And so I believe that I have been back they do 2 a year. So they do 2 instructor certification programs a year. And one, I believe, is around June or July, and one is in January. And so, yeah, the first one was really cool. And all of them subsequently had different value, of course, and they're all always great. But the whole process of going through that was really cool, because it was like I was always somebody who liked to speak. I was always somebody who, I saw myself as somebody who could articulate myself fairly well and communicate with people fairly well. But there was a whole bunch of stuff that, maybe I didn't know or, helped me kind of further understand what makes a good instructor. And, I really liked that there was this standard that everyone was going to live up to, regardless of your rank. And I always love that saying. It's like, just because you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, just because you're a black belt in the moves doesn't mean you're a black belt in teaching. And I really appreciated that because, nobody's perfect. Nobody's a perfect instructor. And I didn't see myself in any way as great or anything like that. I knew I had certain strengths and certain weaknesses. But what it helped me do, it helped me round me out. And it also helped me live up to a standard that was really cool, like really almost like enjoyable all the time, to be able to make sure that everyone in my academy is learning. And there's so many different ways of learning. So some people learn visually, some people learn by listening, some people learn by feel and touch.
Right.
Keeping the Gracie guidelines in place, like is the move, applicable against a striking opponent? Is it a natural body movement? Is it energy efficient? So what I really sensed when I started to look into the ICP was I sensed kind of that 80 to 90 years of experience kind of in its current form. And so just, reading through the manual and watching the entire course of 52 different instructor videos, I was like, this is just a mountain of information, but it was also just a culmination of at least 3 generations of hard work and an effort in a positive direction. So it was really cool, and I got really excited, and it helped me kind of keep my passion for jiu-jitsu stronger than ever. And it felt right for me to reach out to my community in that way.
Awesome. And I agree with you. It's such an incredible program, and I went through it initially in 2011. And every time you go back to serve as a helper, if you will, or an assistant with that, you gain so much, from that side of it as well. So really fortunate to have done that, and glad our paths crossed at the last one.
Me too.
Tell us a little bit about your life when you're not on the mat, Marc. Do you have any time for any other hobbies, or is it 100% jiu-jitsu all the time?
Well, I do a lot of jiu-jitsu because I teach about 23 group classes a week. And then I have privates, and of course the administration. I still do mostly administration with my wife, and we do have one secretary. So we stay very busy with it. And being from Canada, I always seek out the sun.
Yeah, for sure.
So trying to get as much sun as possible, just because, it's not always sunny, especially Vancouver is known to be a rainy city. And there are days where it's, bright and sunny and beautiful. Today, for example, it snowed last night, so there's a snow cover, but it's also very bright and very beautiful. So I definitely love to get out into nature. It's kind of the perfect complement to being on the mat and doing something healthy and positive, is to get out into nature and to do something like that. So I love hiking. I do a little bit of snowboarding here and there. I do like to camp, so I'm really working on getting out there for more camps, getting out to do a few days out there in nature. So, and, if I can travel and it has something to do with jiu-jitsu and nature, that's perfect. I'm always interested in seeing different parts of the world, and that's been one of my things, is a little bit of travel. I've been a few different interesting places in the world, and I definitely want to do more of that. I've been to Indonesia, so I've been to Asia, been to Hong Kong, been to Africa, of course, been to Brazil, and always looking to see more, of course, a little bit of the U.S. So that's definitely always on my agenda, is to try to get a little bit of that in. And I'm really into audiobooks and kind of like a little bit like personal development. Mm-hmm. I would like to work on my mind. So how I focus and being in a kind of a good neutral state. So I do several different techniques to kind of keep myself and my mind fresh. So I do something called like the Silva method, which I discovered is kind of a course that I can continually do, which is like almost like a relaxation and mind focusing technique, which is about breathing and stuff. Yeah, so I'm kind of into those things, and then eating. My wife is so into nutrition, and so I love to eat, but I'm pretty disciplined about it as well.
Wow, sounds like you have a very interesting and well-rounded life. I share your passion with the audiobooks and the personal development. I spend a lot of time in my car, so I try to use that time to, edify my mind and put in positive things, every day.
Cool.
As well as traveling. I'd love to be doing more traveling away from just the States and get to see more countries. I've seen a number, but it's been a while since I've been anywhere else. I still want to get down to Brazil. I've never made it down there yet. So.
Yes, and you got to come up to Vancouver, North Vancouver.
Absolutely. Speaking of coming up to Vancouver, you got a interesting guest coming up next month, Steve Maxwell.
Yeah. So January 21st, Steve Maxwell is going to be at our school, and we're going to be doing 2 sessions. And one is going to be like Gracie Jiu Jitsu Foundations, and one's going to be about Jiu Jitsu for a lifetime. And it's great because I think this is like the path that we're on. It's, we have all ages at my school. And one thing that I see it as is all ages means there's young practitioners there, and they're at a different phase, and there's older practitioners that love what they get out of this art, and they want to be around. They, enjoy the different benefits, which, one huge one is just the camaraderie and the friendship. You and I met at the ICP, but how many different friends do I get to meet when, people join our school or any kind of courses that we go on, going to the GST or going to different seminars all around. And I find that a lot of adults, they do join things that helps them make friends, but to me, it's like jiu-jitsu. Imagine how close you get to somebody and how well you get to know somebody under pressure and when you sweat together, and how they react to being, on the bottom, and how they react when they're in control. So there's so much about the jiu-jitsu journey that I think is valuable for people. And I think Steve Maxwell has kind of he's been around the block. He's been around for a little while, and he's a great reflection of this goal that we have, be able to do jiu-jitsu for a lot longer and have this good thing in our life. So I find that Steve Maxwell was, number one of my students walked up to me one day who's into a little bit of kettlebell training and some fitness, and he said, "Did you know that Steve Maxwell is coming to town in January?" Because he was already coming to town for a fitness seminar. Mm. And I said, "No, actually, I didn't know." And he goes, "We should bring him in here." And I said, "You think so?" And he went, "Oh, yeah." And he just looked me right in the eye, and I knew at that moment we could do it. He was so sure. His look was awesome. And so basically, I contacted Steve, and, I've watched a lot of his videos, and I like that Steve has alternatives, and he thinks independently, and he's got a good base in what we do, but he also is he's a unique thinker. Yeah. And I always find that intriguing because, to me, new information, we can always take it through our filter, and we can digest and accept what is best. And if there's something that doesn't work for you right now, you can leave it off to the side. And so I think most of my school feels the exact same way. We're very excited to learn what he has to offer. So I think it's going to be awesome. So that's kind of our theme. We want to be able to do jiu-jitsu for a long time. And if that's your goal, come visit us. And, that's what we're going to kind of continue to do, is bring in people like that. Very exciting.
Right on. I admire your openness to do that, and I certainly am an admirer of Steve Maxwell as well. Had him on the show, and always enjoy hearing him and his philosophy and his insight and experience, for sure.
Cool.
So, Marc, who's had the greatest impact on your life? And this could be professional or personally. Just who comes to mind as probably the greatest impact on your life?
Oh, that's a big one. I can't give that to any one person. My mom deserves pretty well the most credit, for sure, by far. But my mom wouldn't accept that. You know what I mean? If my mom had to take that full credit, she would tell me, there's a number of different people that you want to learn from and you want to stand on their shoulders. And so certainly, the Gracies have done a lot for me. In my spiritual practice, there's so many different, I believe, different influences that, I'm a pretty spiritual guy, so I've lots of different influences there. Who else would I look at? Definitely my mom. My dad deserves some credit, for sure, 100%, even though we didn't always grow up together here. Many different positive interactions that we've had. So, and of course, my wife, even though we've only met in the last 7 or 8 years, she's had a tremendous impact on me. And she's like she balances me a lot. I'm a dreamer, so I like to do a lot of big projects, and I like to think very big. And she helps me shape my dream into reality, but also keeps me thinking reasonably.
Nice.
So, yeah, for sure, definitely. You say, maybe I'm like Captain Kirk, and I want to go do, huge adventures, and she'll, Spock me once in a while. She'll be like, Spock, keep me thinking reasonably and logically.
Right. Well, we all need people like that to support us, but also, give us that other perspective and keep us grounded, right?
Definitely.
So you've done a lot of different things, accomplished a lot, and touched a lot of lives, Marc. What would you say you're most proud of in your life so far?
Definitely our school. Yeah, North Vancouver, Gracie Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I think the school is really, it's a lifelong project. So opening up an academy, opening up a school that, shares self-defense with your community, and self-defense is such a big concept. So it goes so much beyond getting in a fight in a lane and an alley. It has to do with how you want to treat yourself and how you want to preserve yourself and how you want to help others around you. And a school and a martial arts practice becomes such a big thing for so many people, because we have children, we have, a bully-proof program, we have women that come into our school, we have some law enforcement that come to our school, and we have, everyday people and athletes and just every walk of life. And so I see it as a beacon in the community, and the goal becomes to make it a place that, lasts beyond your own lifetime, right? And so that it's always here for the community as a place of positivity and health and friendship and growth. So yeah, definitely that is in my life, a great sense of positivity, and it's brought me great joy. And I think a lot of people might agree that it's a special place for us. So the work continues. We never stop. We definitely always want to make it better and better. So that's it for sure.
Awesome. Got to take you back before we close. Got to take you back to something you mentioned at the very beginning, the Rocky movies and what influence they had on you. Yeah, I got to laugh because I remember the day the first one came out and just what an impact that had on me. And I think they just had the 20-year anniversary.
Did they?
Yeah. So what do you remember about when that came out and just that impact?
Well, I can't remember the year. I don't know if I saw Rocky 1 or Rocky 2 first, because I was so young, I just remember that little aspect of me that got ignited, and the way that the fire was lit, obviously, as a child, with that running around and trying to hit the little fake punching bag.
Right.
What I do remember is I would watch stuff like Superman and, just lots of little boys and just getting so excited and wanting to be like that. And as I grew into a teenager, who deserves 100% mention, was Bruce Lee movies and Van Damme. Finally, it's just with Bloodsport. And I know this got a terrible name, and if people haven't seen Bloodsport, they have to watch it. Because the interesting part about watching a movie like Bloodsport, if it's age appropriate for you, is that Bloodsport was the concept that there was an underground tournament where any martial art could go against any martial art.
Yes.
And we would fantasize about what would happen if, this martial art went against this martial art. And all of a sudden, within a couple of years, somebody says, hey, this is real. It exists. It's called the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The level of excitement that we had just being able to watch each new edition that was coming out was unprecedented because we had no idea. All we had was movies to tell us what worked, and what worked in movies wasn't necessarily real. Sometimes it was fancy stuff and spinning stuff and unbelievable power moves and speed. And all of a sudden we saw this guy that moved slowly and carefully and methodically and technically and had this huge strategy and a very intelligent, genius, yet simple strategy. And we were blown away. Our heads were knocked off our shoulders with amazement, and everyone that saw it was universally changed in how they perceive martial arts forever.
So true.
And so, watching those movies was great, but the UFC was it was tied into the world of movies. It was like this thing that you could watch that kind of showed, hey, you're interested in this, but let's show you what really works and what it's really like. And what a process to go through growing up. It's a unique time to grow up because obviously not everyone gets to take that same psychological journey nowadays of only getting the movies and then having the kind of the revealing of the first few UFCs. It's so interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting. And let me correct myself going back. It was they just had the 40-year anniversary for Rocky, not 20. But I totally, because I was like, wow, that was a long time ago. But I completely identify with you because the Van Damme and Bloodsport, that was like, wow, that was so great, and he was just this dynamic dude. And so big fan of his. Yeah. But like you said, you always wondered what would happen in a real situation like that. So when the UFC came out, you're like, oh man, here it is, and check it out. Yeah. And it opened everybody's eyes. I mean, if you were around back then, there's no way that didn't have an effect on you if you were remotely into martial arts or combat sports or anything like that.
It was a big difference, and all the magazines and stuff with the different articles and arguments and questioning of what was working and what would work went on for years. It went on all the way into 2000s. And maybe to a certain extent it still does today. One thing that I was thinking to mention, the 40-year anniversary. That's what I thought. I think the first Rocky movie was released slightly before I was born because I'm not 40 yet.
Yep.
So, just before I was born. So I probably watched the first one maybe when I was 5 or something.
Wow.
And, for sure. That just that feeling of your heart pumping in your chest.
Yeah.
With that super excitement was great. And all those movies gave you that. And just seeing those UFCs, and still to this day, I think that's why fight fans exist. There is something primal about it. I've never, ever enjoyed and wanted anyone to ever get hurt. That's not my personality. But I was always interested to see what would happen and how, that's why it was so remarkable to see somebody to defeat another person without truly injuring them.
Right.
And strategic striking and control. And, of course, there was some bumps and bruises, no doubt about it. But certainly seeing jiu-jitsu in action the way that it worked, I was like, wow, this is it has so many pieces of the puzzle. It's pretty well everything. And, it became that for me, It became something that I got into just more and more.
I couldn't agree more. It's such an incredible display of jiu-jitsu, such an eye-opener for everyone. So I kind of miss those days in a lot of ways of those events. But
I always say this to my people. I say, we know that there are people who train for the UFC now, and maybe they even train to try to sprawl and not get into the ground fight. But the world out there, it's still 1993. It's pre-UFC because the entire world is not knowledgeable on how to defeat that effective strategy that was developed, which is cool because that seed that was available, that was planted, is still available today. And I think, everyone should learn that to me and then, branch off into all the different aspects of, jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu and
Absolutely.
Being able to train with the gloves and the gi and no gi. And so, that seed that was there, I found that was the most potent dose that I took back in the day, which got me so excited. And I know a lot of people, they get excited about different aspects of jiu-jitsu, But that's just one more reason. It's one more reason for me, like, you know, from my perspective, to take people on that journey. So once in a while, of course, we have that talk, and I like to share that story, what it felt like to be young and growing up and see those movies and then see how that all unfolded.
Absolutely. Well, man, I really appreciate your time and your sharing your experience and your insight and your journey with us. I have much respect for you and what you're contributing and the impact you're having on lives. So thank you so much for taking time to be with us today, and I hope you have a long, healthy life, my friend.
You too. Yeah, it's been a great chat, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime, and maybe I'll be seeing you on the mats in Torrance, here in North Van, or somewhere.
We'll definitely do it one place or another, my friend.
Awesome. Let's keep in touch.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And my guest for this segment today is Howard Steele. Howard is the owner and head instructor of Delaware Bushido Academy. And he's an awesome person, great instructor, and he's going to talk to us today about positivity. So enjoy.
What's up, guys and gals? It's Howard Steele. And if you're listening to this podcast, that makes us new best friends. And my friends all call me H. First, I want to say I'm honored to be included in such great company, and that I was asked to speak a bit on positivity on today's podcast. I have to admit, however, that I struggled a bit with topic choice, as there's so many interesting facets in positivity to talk about. And anyone that knows me personally knows I love to talk. But I was able to narrow my ideas into a few quick guidelines that we could easily expound on later on. First, I'll define positivity as it applies to our life and our character. Then, answer the question, why should we be more positive? And finally, I hope to leave you with some helpful tools that hopefully you can start leading a more enjoyable life today. For today's talk, let's think of positivity as everything good, pleasant, favorable, and everything of the highest worth. But rather than objects or things, let's hone in on the characteristics a bit, how we act towards ourselves and others. So, kindness, respect, integrity, rectitude, courage, and loyalty, honesty, someone that's honorable, someone you look up to, generous and compassionate, loving even, giving of themselves, and let's not forget funny and fun. And by that I mean someone that you love to be around, someone that makes you laugh, that makes you feel good, someone that inspires you to do better and be better. And while focusing mainly on the positive is my practice, I was reminded recently that you can't just not acknowledge the contrast, negativity. Dun, dun, dun. So let's address that for a second, but only for a second. Because like I said, what we focus on grows, and we want to learn how to live a more positive life. Negative people, dismal, always down in the dumps. You know the kind. They tell you everything bad that happens in their life, their neighbor's life, and what they saw bad on the news. They always seem to be sick. The sky is falling. You know the person. They could find $1 million in a bag, but the bag's too heavy. Or it's not the right color. These are the people you don't like being around. You're uncomfortable around them. And every time you spend time with them, you leave feeling drained emotionally and physically. And remember, what we focus on grows, and negativity feeds on negativity. Okay, enough of the gloom and the doom. Let's get back to the party. Let's address the why. Why should we actively try to be more positive? Let's break the answer down into two smaller thoughts. First, for the sci-fi folks out there, let's relate it to think of positivity as your force field. A force field is an imaginary, impenetrable bubble of sort that protects us from the enemy. And in this case, the enemy is negativity. When you exude awesomeness, you know, the positive energy and aura, upbeat, fun, and all those positive character traits we listed earlier, there is nothing for negativity to feed on. So it starves, eventually feels unwelcomed, and either changes, hopefully, or unfortunately sometimes, in the case of negative people, they just kind of go away. But either way, we're left to lead a brighter and happier life. The X idea that I want to mention is that of your vibe attracts your tribe. This one goes back to the laws of attraction stating that like attracts like. And as Dr. Phil wisely said, when you hang out with 9 bums, you're bound to be the 10th. Well, the same goes for surrounding yourself with amazing, energetic, and genuinely good people. How could you not become super awesome? So with the things said before, I want you to ask yourself, do I want to lead a dark and dismal existence or a purposeful, enjoyable, amazing life? And I think I know the answer already. So now the how. You might already be asking yourself, H, how do I get started? How can I be more positive today? Practice. But remember, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So here are some perfect ways to get you started. Number 1, be mindful of your thoughts. What we think about, we bring about. If you find yourself thinking negatively, change the channel. Listen to your favorite song, call a funny friend, or my personal favorite, watch videos of puppies. Yep, it always helps me. Number 2, eat healthy and exercise. Fuel yourself for awesomeness. Eat fresh, feel fresh, and exercise. The mere idea of bettering your body has a profoundly positive effect on the mind. Number 3, attitude of gratitude. Make a list of things you are thankful for and focus on them daily. Number 4, pick a trait and practice it. Really hone in on one specific trait weekly and practice it. My favorite is benevolence. The world can always make do with a few more kind people. And number 5, make goals. Any goals, big goals, small goals, and actively work toward them. The forward motion will keep you from becoming stagnant and falling into a rut. And 6, and finally, surround yourself with awesomeness. Pick a person or a group of people that inspire you and befriend them. Follow them on social media, attend their seminars, train with them. If they make you feel good, surround yourself with them. Have dinner, go roller skating, invite all your awesome friends to a party for nothing more than to celebrate awesomeness. Folks, that's going to have to wrap it up for today. Such a quick but meaningful 5 minutes. Rewind, take notes, and start practicing today. I hope you guys had a great listen. Now go forth and be awesome.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. I appreciate all feedback, so if you have feedback, please don't hesitate to give it. If you have ideas for the show or for guests, please let me know about those. You can leave feedback on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also leave feedback on iTunes, and while you're there, make sure to rate the show. It helps us with our standing in iTunes. If you haven't liked us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter, please go ahead and do that. And don't forget to share the episodes on your Facebook and social media. Again, thanks again for listening, and until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.